Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
This is Ed Cohen, and I'm in Big Bear, California, which is 7,000 feet high above LA Metro. It's about freezing Fahrenheit temperature and a foot of new snow on the mountains just down the street from here. And I welcome you to Global TV Talk Show. This is a unit of globalbusinessnews.net. Since we launched the TV talk shows in the spring of 2020, we have produced with a lot of help from a lot of people, including the people way up there. More than 400 of these broadcasts, and could never have been done without some sponsors, but more so without the help of leaders such as Dr. Lynn Schmidt, David E. Dick, Stephen Howard in particular, and so many others. Google Analytics has tracked through yesterday almost 170,000 audience page views to these talk shows that we have produced, and from more than 100 countries. More than 70% are US, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, about 20% Europe, about 9% in what's called Asia Pacific, which is a huge region, 1% Middle East, which is mostly Tel Aviv and Dubai, some Saudi, and 1% somewhere else. I can't remember, but we're going to try to grow Asia Pacific, which is why I very much wanted to have this opportunity today, and could not have been possible without Amico. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much for being our rock of knowledge and support. Very thankful to you, Amico, and your colleagues in Japan. All right, we're going to go around quickly. Again, self-intro. This is for the audience worldwide. And we're going to start with David Welch, U.S. guy in Arkansas. David, thanks for being here. Please introduce yourself with a focus on your most recent corporate experience and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So, yeah, David Welch, currently living in Bentonville, Arkansas. Basically, I've got a 25-year career on both the corporate, supplier, and independent consultant side, most recently doing independent consulting in the mobility space. Spent 6 years living in Tokyo, Japan, 2 years in Bangalore, India, and then the rest of my career of that has been in the United States. So, you know, just to me, it gives me a very unique perspective of the Asia Pacific market and how we can help it. I love the topic and very passionate about it. So thank you for inviting me.
Great. Stephen Howard.
Sorry, I was unmuted. Hi, I'm joining you this evening from Mexico City. I kind of divide my time between Mexico City and Southern California. I'm the author of 22 books, and I do leadership coaching and leadership development, leadership mentoring. So thank you, Ed.
And the latest book title, please.
The latest, well, I'll tell you the next book title. The next book coming out within the next 4 or 5 weeks. It's called Human Need Leadership, and it's a made-up word combining humanity, and harmony. And so I talk about creating harmony in the workplace. And it's all about the skills, the mindset, and behaviors of being a people-centric leader.
Let's go to Perth, Australia. Hi, Muriel. Thank you. This is Dr. Muriel. She is a leading, a recognized G100 engineer. Tell us more about yourself.
So my name is Mirai Tulekima, based in Perth in Australia, but had a very international career. My background is in the industry sector. I'm an engineer, and I've been in the industry for 25 years, working in leadership and technical roles. The last 10 years, I've been focusing my work on empowering women in male-dominated environment, making sure that we close the gap in leadership, because what we find out is that women get stuck in middle management in those industries. So I've been doing a lot of work coaching, and I also have a talk show to encourage and share tools, success tool and strategy for women to be able to just do that.
Now, your focus has been in engineering, is oil and gas, right?
That's
Yes.
correct.
So what do you
Yeah.
think about what's going on today with $135, $140?
Oh, it's good for the industry, but I don't know if it's good for the consumers. So you have to balance.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to circle back.
Balance
Okay.
that, but that's good for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And to Hong Kong. So Beverly Sun, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know the last time you were on our program, I made you stay up past your midnight. So I had this in mind to do a show where we could have your full energy.
You know, when you're in Asia, people forget that this is a global business. So we tend to have to hold both ends of the candlestick. So that's just the fact of life. So it's with great enthusiasm, truly, that we participate in arenas that where people are interested in this part of the world.
Okay, so how's the property market, if you can do this in 30 seconds?
In 30 seconds or less, I would say that the property market itself has been very active in Hong Kong. In China, there are some issues in respect of concern by central government in respect of large developers and their practices. So there's been a little bit more of a blanket in terms of sales activities, and you can find now more of the local community. By the way, within 30 years from nothing to multi-million-dollar properties is quite an achievement. So you find that there is a little blanket of activity in China overall, but the leasing activity tends to be quite robust in the local community.
Yeah, and let's go to Unique Kim in Seoul. I've been in Seoul. I've been on Itaewon Street, and I've stayed in the Hyatt up on the hill there. And very, very long time ago, I was a print publisher, which means glossy magazine pages. And so we used to print our California-bound relocation guide in Seoul. And and we had an LA business broker who originally was from Seoul, and that's how we made that connection. So I very much enjoyed my travels throughout your beautiful and very exciting country, and particularly Itaewon Street and the downtown business area. It's just like Times Square and Wall Street.
Yeah, actually our office also located in Itaewon area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, okay, so first, thanks for having me today. And then, as I told you, my name is Kim from South Korea. And then I work at Interways. And Interways, we offer one-stop shop solution for relocation and immigration services in South Korea. So whether it is identifying the life visa and finding the apartment, or providing aspect with other support to make them their home, like Korea. And we support and advise and top-notch services. And then thank you for this opportunity to be part of this discussion. And I would like to learn more about the International Women's Day. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, let's go to Amiko in Japan. Once again, thank you for sending me those beautiful photos. And thank you again for all the counseling. Appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me here. Hi, I'm Emiko from All Japan Relocation. We are a destination service provider in Japan. We started our relocation business in 2006. We have offices in Tokyo and Kobe. I'm actually based in Kobe, so Kobe is well known. I told you the Kobe beef. We provide one-stop solution relocation service with the highest level. We have a company and department specializing in home searches, furniture leasing, tenancy management, visa immigration service, and more. We are very flexible, so we can also provide order-made services. Our top motto is hospitality, which is in Japanese, omotenashi. We are so happy. Great. We have so many great reputation from our customer for our hearted hospitality. That makes us happy.
Yes, and so I'm looking at that photograph above you, which is sort of blue. That one, yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, what is that?
That's Mount Fuji and our All Japan relocation. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
attention.
yeah. Thank you very much. I know we're having some sound connection issues here, but we will go forward. Okay, let's go. Excuse me. Let's go to Stephanie Aker. So you've been involved in the relocation industry a very long time at senior levels from an administrative point of view, right?
Yeah, I started out in the real estate part of things. So working with corporate transferees and the RMCs and working with, one-on-one with the actual corporates that were being transferred. And I fell in love with it and I was appointed to a global task force and, started working with different brokers all over the world and just fell in love with the industry and the people and networking globally. So this is amazing. And I'm so happy to be here and meet everyone and make more connections.
Yes, I'm very happy to announce that you will be also on our program tomorrow morning, my morning here. We'll start 7 a.m. in LA, and it's 3 p.m. in London, 4 p.m. in Central European time, 7 p.m. in Dubai, 6 p.m. in Saudi Arabia, and 8:30 p.m. 8:30 p.m. India time, and where we have India and Sri Lanka represented. So it's really going to be interesting. I thank you for wanting to do both. Very much appreciate that. In Melbourne, let's go back to you, Robin. Tell us about the relocation industry there. Have things held together despite the pandemic?
Hi, Ed. Thank you. Yes, I'm in Melbourne. So in Victoria, we had a strong, hard lockdown for, I think it was 216 days, which was pretty much a world record for a hard lockdown. We couldn't go within 5 kilometers. And at that time, the rental market just went into a dive. But January this year, as things opened up, it was certainly our busiest time that we've ever had, not just with internationals arriving, but local moves and people moving interstate. So yes, the market's definitely opened up. We're pretty much back to normal and operating at full speed after filling the sales pipeline for 2 years and everybody waiting to move. So yeah, it's busy at the moment.
So before we go to Dr. Lynn Schmidt and talking about not only her book, Anti-Sexist, but the theme of today's broadcast celebrating and supporting International Women's Day, hashtag Break the Bias, I want to go back to David Edick because he's really got his finger on the pulse of what's going on in geopolitics. David, thanks for bearing with me here.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be on these calls and meet all kinds of interesting people. Muriel, so San Diego and Perth are actually sister cities. We do have a connection here. And Emiko, my work in Russia primarily has been in the Russian Far East and Vladivostok, so just across the Sea of Japan, and been through Korea quite a number of times. So, Ed, where do you want to go with the Russia stuff?
Well,
or Ukraine?
$135 oil.
Right. So, yeah, that's my specialty these days is oil and gas. So it's a panic right now. Certainly in the gas market, oil as well. The sanctions and self-sanctioning are really going to complicate things. I have no idea where this is going to end up, but if it goes on for very long, we're going to have a very serious recession and maybe even a depression out of it. And you throw in the agricultural problems that are coming out of this from Ukraine and the leap in grain prices around the world. Low-income people here in the United States and in every country on this call are going to have a hard time, and in lower income countries there's going to be starvation. So this is a complete disaster. It's hard to say where this is going to end up. There's a number of tracks where things can go. The Russian military performance in Ukraine has really been disastrous, and their communications are terrible. They're basically using personal cell phones and unencrypted radios to talk with each other, and the supply system is pretty fragmentary. And if they don't fix those problems in 2 to 3 weeks, it's not going to be an effective force in Ukraine, and anything can happen after that. But in the meantime, we're living in an avalanche. So hang on.
Okay, well, with that good news,
Well,
no, we'll circle back. So from Asia Pacific Properties, Beverly, David, Edith, how effective are the sanctions?
So far, I would say they're very effective. The unexpected development was sanctions by Europe, by the central bank there, locking down Russian reserves, central bank reserves held abroad in Europe. That was unexpected, and that's had a huge impact. In addition to the government-placed sanctions, it's the self-sanctioning behavior that's really the new move here. Companies and people just withdrawing, taking their hands off of any kind of commercial or even cultural activity with Russians. And it's really extraordinary to see. A combination between the two is meeting in maritime circles, shipping of cargo or access to shipping. And it's the turbulence is at every level you can imagine. And we're
well,
just
let me jump
started.
in if I can, with like MasterCharge and EY and KPMG and PwC saying, "Oh, we're pulling out of Russia." So that means there's emergency relocations immediately, right now. And how do you get people out? I mean, is everyone calling SOS? You know,
if you're not out now,
happening?
If you're not out now, you may have to walk or drive. You might get lucky with the train still, but the air connections have basically come to a stop, both inbound and out. So.
Okay, so yes, who wants to speak? I didn't see.
I just have a question.
Oh, Beverly, okay.
If you don't mind, I'm obviously, this is just so disturbing and deeply moving when you see the targeted audience, which is really the populace at large, who are now looking to escape on foot out of Ukraine. And whilst the sanctions, I agree, are highly effective and more than we would have expected in short order with corporations coming forward, the concern, meanwhile, is that there's just such a tremendous amount of misinformation and propaganda being fed in Russia. So you're creating even a greater schism, and I'm not sure how we can get around to truth.
Well, that's a long road right there. So most of the young generation are internet savvy and well connected. It's not to say that everyone young is liberal. They're not, or that everyone old, aged is conservative and technically incompetent. They're not. It's a rather tech savvy society. A lot of propaganda has gone around, to the big shock for the Russians is the catastrophic economic wave that is tearing apart a generation of work following the dissolution of the Soviet Union. It's a tragic thing. When it comes to, say, protests, I'll be very honest with you, there's not a lot of future in that. The way out of this actually is that the Russian military performance in Ukraine continues to be disastrous, and that could have really serious implications for political leadership in Moscow. Security services run the show there. If Russia's army force in Ukraine is left rotting in the field, there will be consequences at the top.
Just one last question, and then I'll give it to the others. It's been said that Putin is so now removed from the realities of the situation that there might be some vulnerability. Is that just a wishful or a rumor type of, or is type of a broadcast going about, or is that in fact a certain vulnerability that might jeopardize the situation from his perspective and in respect of his role?
Well, I mean, the whole move into Ukraine really was based on delusion and illusion. The Kremlin, etc., expected Ukraine to fold up immediately, and that was always a foolish place to be coming from. I mean, anybody paying attention, and many were in Russia. So delusion and illusion are crucial here. Yeah, he's isolated. Putin is isolated, and people are fearful of giving an alternate opinion. It's always awkward anywhere in the world to come into a room where everybody sees it one way and you might be the only one that sees it another. And believe me, I've been there for that. And that's an awkward thing. And if you lose a career or a job over it, you may think twice about doing it. There are many people that know what's going on and what a catastrophe this is. And the decision to go in Ukraine was very few people at the very top, handful or two, knew what was coming. And that's part of the problem with the military performance, was they didn't know that this is what they were going to go do.
Sign up for.
So they, so with the firing of artillery on women and children, and buildings which had nothing to do with a military target, I mean, that's craziness. That's lunacy.
It's war, and it's ugly stuff. And it always has been. I mean, in every country that's involved in a war, there's an amazing amount of sterilization that goes on. But an important part of the plan, if you will, here from the Kremlin, from Putin himself, is this return to the czarist era of empire, of where there really was little difference between Russian and Ukrainian people. It was a blend, a mosaic, even more blended than a mosaic. Gosh, I'm losing the thread on that. I had something.
Okay, so let me come back to you. We're joined by Melinda Stallings, who's in the Dallas area, Austin, I guess now, and originally from New Orleans, which is where we first met. So she is a teacher and a trainer, and she's written a book called The Power of Positive Solutions, right? Or power
conflict resolution.
Yeah, right. And boy, that's what we need now, isn't it?
Absolutely. Send me in, coach.
Yeah. Why don't you explain better about yourself than I just did?
That's okay, Ed. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here with you all. I apologize for the lateness. I was actually teaching a class prior to, but I have been, I try to stay a lot out of politics and really don't rely much on the news, but and forgive me if I've missed this thread where this came from, but I read a pretty interesting article on, it was actually on LinkedIn this morning, and it was talking about how it is perfect positioning time for the EU and for NATO to assimilate Ukraine into the EU. Have you all discussed that at all?
Not yet.
Okay. So I'm not sure where it is on the feed. I can try and find it and send it over to Ed, but the atrocities that are occurring are, well, I mean, it is unfathomable, as people are saying. And I think a lot of people early on were saying, well, you knew this was coming. Why didn't you pack some clothes up, and why didn't you try and get out of there? And the individual said, we really didn't know this was coming. And even if we had been able to pack up, where were we going to go? It's the middle of winter there. I mean, it's cold. The conditions are horrendous. And I think that probably one of the most beautiful things that I've seen is the world really coming together behind the Ukraine and saying, we're beyond this. I mean, this is old school kinds of ways of handling situations. And, oddly enough, in the power of positive conflict resolution, one of the things that we talk about is entering into that dialogue where you do have the courage, I call them courageous conversations, where you own your truth, where you really you've analyzed the situation, you've looked at everything objectively. Now, when you have a zealot, that takes two parties, and it takes individuals who are willing to enter into those conversations. And we're talking at, a grand scale here, but still, when the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, when what's that saying? When the monkeys are running the zoo or whatever, it becomes unfortunate. Yet, what's the solution for these individuals in the Ukraine that are now being displaced, some horrifically? The pictures are they just turn my stomach. And I think one of the things that was pointed out in the article this morning was, Europe, if you don't think he's going to stop here, you're wrong. And so it is time for the EU, and it's time for NATO to get on board and to say, do we want to stop this encroachment? Because Ukraine is kind of a buffer zone in between Russia and the European countries. And that's not going to be around much longer if they let Russia have their way. Fortunately, it seems that the tide is turning, but that remains to be seen. Who knows? The other thing is, and I'm speaking with due respect to everyone who is joining from another country, I am hoping that Americans wake up also, because Russia doesn't care who it is. If they want what you've got, they're gonna try and come and get it. There is a madness to the method, and I believe that unfortunately, at the hands of the Ukrainian, this has been a wake-up call for a lot of people.
Thank you, Mindy.
Yeah.
So the theme of today is about breaking the bias, and we've seen a lot of women, Dr. Lynn-Schmidt, we've seen a lot of women on the news from Ukraine who are in the leadership. What do you have to say about all that? And lead us into a discussion about breaking the bias.
Well, as far as Ukraine goes, yeah, lots of women. I mean, my understanding is prior to this, lots of women were involved in the military, but the women are stepping up. The women that are in politics there are stepping up. I mean, every woman in any role who has decided, she doesn't need to leave with her children, has stepped up. And even if they're civilians, they're getting training to defend their country. And I think it just goes to show that, for so many years, right, women weren't in any military anywhere. And I think it just goes to show that women, it's just as important to women to defend their country, and women are just as capable for defending their country. So it's another step forward, or at least it's another validation.
So one of the things that you and I discussed this past week and prepped for this conversation and the one tomorrow is three things that we can get our arms around this idea of gender bias. And you're the expert, Dr. Lynn-Schmidt, not me. I'm just a facilitator today. So identify with the idea of what we're just discussing with the Ukrainian women in the forefront here. They are taking charge because the men have to go shoot a gun.
Well, a lot of the women have taken up guns as well. So I think anyone who's able is male or female is defending the country, and those that have families or who are older or who needed to leave are leaving. But women are, the way it looks to me is everybody's, that's staying is defending the country, male or female.
Right. So let's continue in this vein. Amiko, in Japan, would you like to discuss gender bias? Can you identify one thing or a couple of things that are of particular concern to you?
Well, actually, I don't know how to say. Thank you for that. Today is International Women's Day, but actually, I didn't know the holiday. Yes, and even it's so, I don't know what to say. That's environment. And according to the internet, I checked, and Japan is 40% is aware of known of this whole, International Women's Day. But I checked with my office mate and around me, and out of 50, only one person knows about that. So that shows some people are very, very interested and very pay attention, but some people not even pay attention or didn't know. That's I found out, even including myself. That's true. Sorry.
That is really interesting, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
So Beverly Sun, what do you think about that? And can you identify one particular thing you'd like to see changed in this regard?
In terms of leadership, I think this is really a global issue. I would say that probably in Asia, given our culture, and if you've heard the tight traditional methodologies and values, that women are not necessarily in the forefront. And certainly through COVID-19, I think all women have taken a back step or have been put aside, and any progress and much of the progress that's been met has been put on hold. By the way, congratulations to everybody on celebration of International Women's Day. I just would like to for myself, because of this Ukraine situation, even though we're celebrating International Women's Day, I'd like to just point out my congratulations to, and because we have, by the way, so many coaches here, the situational leadership that I have seen coming from Zelensky. It is phenomenal. It is so heart-wrenching to see a leader take up situational leadership. He has gone down to the people. He's not in a suit. He's with T-shirt, with informal garb. And as he says, I don't look to have my photograph on every wall, but I look to you to have a photo of your family on your desk. And any decision you make, look at your family before you make that decision.
His background is a comedian. So he went from television comedy.
Also a good dancer.
But he came with a lot of people skills, his ability to communicate. He's really.
But I just, it's so impressive that you have a leader. And this is what I look for in women. And I think we have that great capacity because of our emotional EQ that we can reach out, but we need to be good listeners as well. And he has that skill. I'm just so impressed. So congratulations to a male on our day.
Robin Vogels, well, what's the picture in Melbourne and in Melbourne and in Australia?
Yeah, Ed, I mean, International Women's Day is definitely celebrated here. It is about empowering women. It's about celebrating women. We have some pretty dismal stats still in Australia, but I think the conversations are starting. And I think that's the important thing, is the conversations need to be held. People need to be held accountable. They need to be called out. And Australians are pretty good about calling it out. We need to get them calling this out a little bit more, but they do want everybody to have a fair go. But we still ranked 48th in the world just for female political empowerment. You know, we've still got, I think the average is something like women have to work 56 days more a year to take home the same pay that men do. So there's still a lot to be done in wage disparity. There's a lot to be done in disability. There's a lot to be done in something that I'm very passionate about, which is migrant women, because we've got a huge amount of women that are, in the STEM subjects in particular. 56% of STEM graduates are migrant women. 40% are unemployed. It's just a waste.
So
Wow.
just across the sea from you is New Zealand, and
Mhm.
there's a female president who's
Correct.
been a leader.
Yes. And I was actually just reading about that. They were talking a lot about, because most political leaders are men, and most men prefer that. Whereas women, I think the statistics, I love statistics, but I can't wrap them off that quickly. But I think something like 65% of people preferred a male leader, except in New Zealand, where they've seen it in practice and they've seen the empathy that Jacinda has been able to show people, the professionalism, the way she has carried the country.
Interesting. And now, Muriel in Perth, in your role as an engineering leader, and there's several women in engineering, top engineering roles, right?
They are. I mean, we've come a long way. I mean, when I started 25 years ago, the picture was really different, and I was the only one on the rig, and the only one in the room most of the time, even talking to teams at the lower level. Things have changed. There've been a lot of work done, not only by women, but also with the support of men. And one thing that I've realized is that we need to work together, because if we just create movement groups where we only talk to women, it doesn't actually work. So we need to work together, because some of the men actually don't understand. They don't see that they are biased. So it's appeal to speak up, because what I've seen in teams, and I've worked in Africa, I've worked in Europe, and it's sometimes women just refrain from telling their male counterpart how they feel, what they want. Sometimes for promotions, they are the best, but they don't talk. So they're waiting for the man manager or the man leader to identify them and to talk on their behalf. So it's important that we get our voice, and we make ourselves heard, and say what we want, and really work with our male counterpart. And that's what I've done. I mean, I've not tried to go my way. I've always tried to work through gender, and the team that I've led, I've always appreciated that. So it's important. The dialogue, just like everything, is very important, and that's the way to go. And things are improving. Now that a lot of men understand what it is and what are the frustration, we seems to be going somewhere, but we still have a long way to go, definitely.
We're about halfway through the time frame. We can go beyond if you want to, but we want to now zero in on some issues of creating a way, a communication method between all of you using the chat here. Make sure you exchange your website, your email, and you can also ask anyone you see here, including me, any specific question, whether it gets to today or not. It'll be a really good idea for another show or at least another time together. So let's go forward. Stephanie Aker in Chicago, your generation is in the lead. It's not my generation. And so tell all of us about how to identify the specific thing, one or two specific bias type things, and what you're doing, if you don't mind me asking, what you're doing to make changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems, and this is, I think historically has been a problem with the perception that and there's that bias where, if a man is, really robust and, speaks, strongly about something, he's passionate. But if a woman does it, she's being emotional or she's being dramatic. And there's so much where, even now I hear things where, women should do this, or women are, more geared towards this role or that role, but not all women have those same characteristics. And I think what we need to do now, and the best thing that we can do to help the next generation of women, and even women today, is not just celebrate them because they're women, help them find their voice and help them find their individual identities. What are their strengths? What makes them special? What separates Maria from Talia? Not just because they're a woman, they should be finding their identities and who they are and how they can contribute to the world, not just as a woman, but as an individual person.
Yeah. Mindy, back to you. When you teach bankers, they've been mostly men, not all, but mostly men. And so are you encountering any gender issues?
Yeah, that's interesting because I believe it was Robin just typed in something about, and the people in the boardroom need to be supporting other women. We are dismal in numbers at the board tables. And yeah, the bankers are still kind of steeped in that patriarchal kind of good old boy fraternity, if you will. No offense, guys, really, but it's very challenging for women to get a seat at the table. And to your point, Stephanie, I think that women have been called even worse if they present the same argument exactly like a man would present it, and then the B word comes out.
I was trying to keep it clean for
sorry, I just had to put it out there. And so I do believe there's a couple of things that have really touched me throughout this conversation, and one of them is the numbers are dismal. Thank you for those of you who have those numbers that are sharing them. Secondly, that's an interesting point about getting everyone involved. I like the fact that people just sometimes aren't aware of the biases that they carry. There's a big push right now in the States about people understanding that they're bringing biases that have been maybe generationally formed or whatever. But the other thing, and this is the thing that really gets me the most, is women who compete against one another. There is, I don't care what role you're in, what business you're in, there is really enough out there. And it's very disheartening when women will not lift one another up, but will go out of their way. And it might be all copacetic at first, but then you can find the animosity starting to build, and then, oh, well, let's not let her in because she's got something going on there. And, we don't want her to take our slice of pie or whatever. And that's very disheartening to me. I'm a firm believer in love, right? I mean, that's really what it's all about, is love. And God said that, whatever you do it in love. Well, when I'm holding back on a person, I'm not being true to what that purpose is. But the interesting part from the suggestion of getting everyone involved is, how can we get those men to enter into dialogue with the women that will help them to truly understand. The bankers, yeah, that's an issue. But I just did a seminar, a retreat for a group of Lutheran pastors. Now, I've never done anything like that before, but it was a retreat where they and their wives, their university presidents, high school principals, and some members of the pastoral society. And they brought their wives with them. And the beautiful part about that was I did the normal flip charting thing where I separated the guys, had them answer some questions, separated the ladies, had them answer some questions. And the questions were, what do you wish that your wife knew more about you? What do you wish that your husband knew more about you? it was amazing how identical the answers were. We're all walking around on eggshells, not feeling like we can really have those conversations that are really just going to make everything so much more, I don't know, edible, I guess. I mean, that's the only word I can think of. So we can all just take the deliciousness of this getting along and understanding one another. I don't know. I certainly don't have a solution other than for, doing the things that I'm doing. But how many, may I just ask for the other women here, how many of you all watch women get to that point where it becomes a competition more than helping everyone rise?
Well, I'm going to jump in for just a minute, and Ed's heard my spiel on this. Research shows 9 out of 10 people are sexist, men and women, and that's a deeply embedded sexism. So everybody else, what I say in my book, everyone is sexist, everyone. So women, don't expect women to not be sexist. I even say I'm sexist. I try to manage it, but I'm sexist. You can never get rid of your biases. You can just learn what they are and manage them. In my book, microaggression and discrimination, and research shows, are committed by both men and women. So that competition part probably gets to the discrimination as well. Harassment and violence, which are my other 2 outcomes of sexism, are primarily committed by men towards women. But women, we're all sexist. And so, yeah, I see, and even me, I mean, I'll think things, and then luckily I try and manage it before it comes out my mouth, just because of my way I was raised, my upbringing. I've got sexist biases towards women. I've got to watch it and manage it. But I think that's what we all need to understand, is everyone is sexist. And until we admit it and are willing to be comfortable talking about it and working on it, it's not going to change. And the numbers aren't good. I love people who like to point out the positives. You always need to do that. But the reason I wrote the book is it's time to point out how bad the shit really is. Yeah, it is bad. The numbers are going south, or they're getting bigger. More harassment, more violence, more microaggression, more discrimination. It's not getting better. And I think we need to, the only way it's going to change is when we admit that, and then we start to work on it.
So I want to ask Amiko, how does this all strike you, to hearing all this, Amiko?
Well, it's hard to accept reality, but well, I don't know the word, but Japan's gender gap index is already in the lowest in G7, and we are the lower than at 120, so out of 150 countries. So it's already, when I was raised by among that lowest, is already accustomed to do that. So we have to admit, we have to do something to changing for the next generation. Well, even at the moment, at the present now, I really feel so, because I should more, if you don't feel it, that means you are not paying attention, because we are women in Japan. It's like a woman executive is, Japan is at 11%, even though that our target is 30% by 2020. It's already passed, and still we are almost 1/3. So that's the reality around my son as it is right now.
Let's go to Yuna, and then Beverly Sun, and then Muriel again. Yuna?
Hello, sorry. First I have to admit that International Women's Day is not very celebrated in Korea. And also we don't have a lot of recognition as it might be other countries. After COVID, it is even more evidence for working mothers. For example, After COVID, a lot of schools has a long-term online classes and requiring a caregiver to stay home to take care of the children. But even though both parents are working full time, but this responsibility mostly fell on the woman's by default. And then the working mothers are expect to sacrifice their career to be the caregiver at home. Even my sister, even my colleague too. So now we're like struggling to like working like as the man. Like we have to take care of the baby, and then in the meantime we have to also work as well. But mostly husband also focusing on the new job, then they're like take care of the babies.
Yeah, Muriel.
Yes, I just wanted to, echo what Lynn was saying, is that, the self-awareness is really important, because sometimes we point out, to the finger to outside, but sometimes we just need to recognize that we play a role in all of this, and really see what we can do, because we can only control what we feel and who we are. We can't control other people, so it's really cross too, because otherwise nothing really happened. I still remember when I started as an engineer in my own family. Women were telling me, yeah, you do all this work and you will never get married, will never, so those bias were actually there, and it just, if you start to them, those are not men discouraging you, these are women actually telling you you shouldn't do a work that men are doing, because otherwise you're going to get out of the societal characteristic, which is not getting married, not having children, would happen to be completely false, because at the end of the day it's about
Muriel, I'm sorry, we're having a connection issue.
What's happening? So against.
Yeah, Muriel, I'm sorry,
Hello?
we're having a connection issue. We didn't get a lot of what you just said. Would you mind repeating just the last couple of sentences?
So the last part, what I was saying is that, we need to, now I lost my thought now, that, we need to understand as well the roles, I think, as women that we control. We can't control men, we can't, we can only create awareness. But the important thing is to understand where our power lies and how we can, come across in a way that that actually, appeal and create a better environment for, for women, and help them to go through in anything that they want to accomplish. Because like I said, I'm the kind of person, I prefer to focus on what I can control more than something else.
Well, being an engineer, I'm sure you can figure out a way how to structure that. And I want to say a special thanks to you. About 2 months ago, you suggested I reach out to this woman in Saudi Arabia by the name of Dr. Niara Radwan. And she and I have made great contact and connection, and she has agreed to be one of our featured speakers tomorrow on the program covering the rest of the world. So I want to thank you for pointing her out. She is also a doctor of engineering. Quite a
and I'm happy because sometimes, I'm happy because sometimes, because of some of the bias, I've worked, for example, in Malaysia, and before I went there, I had the feeling that women were actually they were less powerful than other part of the world. But then, going into those offices where there were men, and and where they were very powerful, voicing what they wanted. and really coming across as strong women, but because they were wearing, the hijab, and, you start to have those bias that, oh, poor woman, they don't have the voice, but then when you go and talk to them, they're really powerful women who are actually making an impact in, in their society and in any industry.
So we want to go to Beverly Sun and then Robin Vogels. Beverly.
Well, this entire topic is very exciting for me. 18 years ago, beyond anybody's belief, I actually created a conference called Women of Influence with the help of other women, by the way. And today, AmCham carries that. It's 18 years hence to recognize women in the community. Number one, I do believe that you need legislation to make quantum change and in faster order. So that's something that we should all be lobbying for. But I also believe in the power of the individual. If I can do it and I'm ordinary, then everybody else can do it. And I see great strides toward that. What's impressive in today's day is that we see now corporations stepping up. They're now creating the DEI element is being incorporated into corporate values as well as ESG. And I find them a way to look within the workforce to bring about greater equality. And we're not just speaking about race, because I think deeper than the race, obviously, I'm Asian, and you can't hide that, and I have no intent to, but other people also recognize that. But beyond the race discrimination, beyond the right now, unfortunately, the target against Asians, particularly, and Asian women, it's horrific. But beyond that, there are also cultural differences within Asia. And if we can sort through cultural differences, I think we can get to a better place. So it's more than race. So I am encouraged to see corporations stepping up. And as David had said, through the sanctions that are being created through corporations, their attempt to be more responsible in short order is hopeful.
Yes, thank you. Robin Vogels.
I completely agree with that sentiment, Beverly. It's exciting that people are having this conversation, and although we can each individually make a difference, I think together we're stronger as well. Together we need to be just having these conversations, getting a band or a tribe together, as they say, and have these conversations together and call it out. I'm particularly excited. I'm about to launch a new business in Australia called Immigrant Networks. And that's really, for me, is going to focus on helping some of the women. But I also want to realize that although today's International Women's Day, breaking the bias and being fair is not just about women. It goes across race, it goes across disabilities, and it goes across men as well. Men there's actually a high rate of sexual harassment in the office for men. There's things like that. So I love that it's International Women's Day, but let's remember that breaking the bias is not just about women. There's so many other layers, and I think women just need to find their confidence, find their voices, and help one another and pull each other up.
So we're going to come to a close in a few minutes. David Welch.
Yeah, so I just want to kind of point out, kind of a watershed moment that I saw last year for Tokyo, as Japan, as well as the Asia group, was when the head of the Olympics in Tokyo kind of commented that women should be a little more quiet. And there's a large backlash of that. And I thought that was awesome. And it came from men and women. And you had volunteers at the Olympics who said they were going to resign if they didn't, if he didn't quit. I love that support. I felt like that was a very good moment where the men and the women, especially in Japan, because I know the Japanese culture, my wife is first generation Japanese, and that allowing that moment where they stood up with a voice and saying, that is not right. And I've been seeing in the comments when we talk about this, calling out of bad behavior and kind of self-policing ourselves, that's exactly what I think we need more of. And not to shame the person who did it, but just kind of saying, what you just said was not right. We need to change that mindset. I think that was a great moment last year. And to me, I don't know if we continued that momentum, but I felt like that was a good start.
Thank you, David Welch. Dave Edick.
Well, I've had the pleasure over the years of working in a lot of NGO environments, which traditionally are women-centric. You know, Hillsdale Music Department Association, for example, which was women-dominated. You know, you get the sexual chemistry, be it all guys in a room full of testosterone. No thanks. You get a room full of all women, all estrogen. No thanks. You get a good blend of the two. It kind of cancels out, and you can really get the best of everyone. You know, a lot of the labels get dropped to the side. So back in the day, I actually first learned about International Women's Day in Vladivostok, Russia. And this came in from a friend of mine there a couple hours ago. My wife said, she's Russian. She said, if you ever, if you ever celebrate that with me, I'm going to do something unfortunate to you, because in the traditional cultures, so often it was the day where, you know, the man at the office would bring flowers to the secretary, or, you know, it was that one day out of 365, and the other 364 days, well, it was a different thing. So, you know, we have found our way through this. It's just in my experience at the board level, you know, management level, that this mix where, yes, you know, everyone's got biases of some kind or another. And it really works best when we together just be human. Maybe that's weird coming from a guy, but that's been my experience. So.
Dr. Lynn Schmidt, thank you for helping me organize this. And has it met your expectations?
I think it's just good to get people talking about it. Like I said, women take a back seat to everything. So not that I don't think racism should be focused on, it should be, but think about how many women of color are on board with men of color to address racism. How many men of color are on board with women of color to address sexism? So I'm just going to point out that women take a back seat to everything. And I think it's just important we talk about it, acknowledge it, and it's not to make wrong, you know, it's to, like was said, it's to address, hey, that comment was bad, that comment was wrong. But it's also to create an awareness that, that, you know, the old cigarette commercial, you haven't come a long way, baby. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but that's the truth. And the stats show it. And until we hold ourselves accountable and hold others accountable. So when your buddy's being sexist, call him on it, right? Or when your girlfriend's being sexist, call her on it. But I think these discussions are important.
Yeah.
Amiko, what do you think about all this?
Yes, I think I learned lots of things today, and sometimes it's really have to put in how do you say, pay attention. That's we all need to do. Thank you.
Yeah, Yunak, thank you for doing this. I hope it worked out for you.
Yeah, thank you. But as I told you earlier, like Women's Day does not have a lot of recognition in Korea. But today I learned many other perspective and experience, and then I can more focus on what is the International Women's Day in the future, and then tell my colleague too.
Great. Thank you, Beverly, again. I really appreciate you doing this. I want you to help me launch a new series covering Asia Pacific, and we'll talk about it another time. Mindy, thanks for showing up after your day of work.
Thank you. Really appreciated everyone's input. And Lynn, thank you for lending your expertise to this discussion.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, everybody has Lynn Schmidt's email. Of course, you can always find her on LinkedIn. She's a dynamic person. So Lynn, tomorrow we have a program which is hard. It's hard to say it's going to be the same as this because it won't be the same. We have the same theme, but that's it. There's so many different cultures coming on this program tomorrow. It starts at 7 a.m. in LA and 8:30 p.m. in India and everything in between. And if anybody wants the link that doesn't already have it, just shoot me a message and I'll get it to you if you want to bop in and out. It's quite all right. There's no fee. So thank you again. Dave Edick, you bring us horrific news. Oh my God, I guess it's better to hear it from a friendly voice than somebody yelling and screaming at us.
There's a mix of potential outcomes. There's nothing foregone about any of this. Is it a disaster? Yeah, but can it be a lot worse than it is? It could be. But again, there's a number of potential tracks here.
So what can be a positive outcome here? Let's take Mindy's book title here. So let's say somebody comes up and taps Putin on the shoulder, the guy who he trusts, let's say, and he says, this got to stop. You're not going to win.
It's too late for that.
Mm-hmm. Too far gone.
Yeah. He's in all the way. So, it's bad things happening to the Russian army in Ukraine, and so it's pretty hard to wish for that,
So would you agree that he is suicidal?
No, I wouldn't. It can be delusional, but to go from delusion to suicidal, no.
He just thinks he's got a guard all shield all around him, right?
Maybe. In my experience, it's a country full of pretty smart people. Yeah. And I think that there's far more awareness at the very top of just how ugly this is and how poorly it's going. Nobody knew, just outside of a handful of people, and it was a shock all across the country. So, and it was a shock at the highest echelons of power. That's a pretty risky strategy anywhere. So,
the fact that Russians now are fleeing Russia is very telling into Scandinavian. That's quite a message.
Yeah,
and there's a psychological construct for an individual who will tell themselves what they believe over and over again. I don't know what the DSM categorization of it is, but and it's something that's almost relatively new with the way that our society has been evolving as of late. But I think Putin has drank his own Kool-Aid for so long that he honestly believes that what he is doing is right. He has rationalized it. He has all of the reasons. And for us, rebuilding the empire might not be a good reason, but for him, it is the reason. And he's going to hang his hat on it. So, yeah, I wish we had, kind of like the Matrix. You want the red pill or the blue pill?
Hi, this is Ed, and I thank you for tuning in to Global TV Talk Show, a unit on globalbusinessnews.net. We broadcast to the world, as you know by now. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that our programs are advertising supported. We're grateful for co-sponsors, advertisers. They have a marketing budget coupled with a strong desire to be associated with our top quality program. And of course, I'm grateful. Well, here's our advertisers, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes or so, and we'll proceed with this interesting conversation. Thank you.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by Porch Light Rental and Destination Services, Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by heirs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at heirs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com. Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
We are pleased to welcome Adamo Education as a proud sponsor of Global TV Talk Show.
The concept of a micro school is the reimagining of the one-room schoolhouse. My name is Tamara Becker. I'm the president and CEO of Adamo Education. The micro school concept really does not just lend itself to the personalization and the customization of learning, but also the social development and fostering that sense of love for learning. Unlike what we see in traditional brick and mortar schools, we have multiple grade levels in the same learning space. Students can be enriched by the socialization that they get, as well as the academic support from peers. What differentiates Adamo is the fact that we are taking the best pieces of brick and mortar, of digital, and then at-home learning. Students here can come 5 days a week. They can come 4 hours a day. It will really just depend on what is best for the student and for the parent. To enroll, just reach out via phone, text, or email, and we'll have that personalized conversation, and we'll be able to get you all set. Check us out at adamoeducation.org.
Okay, who wants to say the last word besides me? Okay, well, thank you all very much. I really appreciate you doing this. So this show is going to be edited slightly, not for content, but for sound and pacing, but it's going to take a few days. And then you all will get your own individual copies of this. We want to go the next step, frankly, in April or May or both, by zeroing in on a one-on-one interview with each of you individually, and not just in a group setting like this. And it's a really good PR device if you use it right. Wouldn't you say, Lynn?
Yes, absolutely. Definitely. I mean, it's a great PR marketing opportunity.
Right. If you use it right, you talk about yourself, you talk about your ins and outs and your aspirations. You can pitch a new book or. So Mindy and I have had this relationship for a while, and we just met for the first time in La Jolla at a restaurant. You happen to be in town. Yeah. By the way, how was Hawaii after that? Did you go there?
Hawaii was, it was lovely. I felt like I was in New York City.
Oh, in Waikiki.
At the beach. I was like, wow, this is not what I had envisioned.
Yeah, Waikiki is crazy. Yeah. Yeah, that's where I took surfing lessons.
No, I didn't do that.
But that's my home state.
Hawaii?
And I'm forever grateful for it because I never knew what discrimination was until I left.
Yeah.
Oh my! Wow. All right.
So my upbringing provided me with the confidence of being who we were.
It's beautiful.
And that I'm always grateful for. So
Great.
Glad you could make it there.
All right. So Amiko, Eunuch, thank you very much. Please come back on the show. Stephanie, tomorrow, do you want to go deeper and do tomorrow?
Oh, I'm in.
Okay, good. Good. David, I'll see you tomorrow. And thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. This is Ed in San Diego. It's a happy hour here. Cheers. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day and stay safe.